Hey, welcome back to the Healthy Living Scottsdale podcast. I'm your host, Coach Zach. I'm here with CJ Hunt, aka Silly C.
Yo.
And Sweet as Candy, Coach Brandy.
Hello.
I've gotten really good at waiting like just long enough for you to say yo without interrupting, and then just like the transition.
Smooth now.
It's smooth. Yeah. All right. Welcome to our late night podcast. Smooth jazz.
We all got to talk like that all day long.
That's right.
You have a good smooth jazz.
Yeah, you could be a DJ.
My mom listened to it.
Did she?
My whole life, yo.
Yeah, you grew up here too. So 95.5, the Coyote.
Coyote.
Yes.
You got it.
See? People are going to be like, what are they talking about?
I'm not sure, but I'm just going
okay.
with
It was 95.5 was the station, and it was KYOT, the Coyote. And it was all smooth jazz. That's when CJ and I were growing up here. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So anyway, I never listened to it, but I always enjoyed listening to that like intro.
The intro.
Yeah. So, all right, guys, that's enough about that. Let's get down to business. So I had the idea for this episode just simply out of having conversations with people day in and day out. And it always seemed like there's a problem, and it's not as big of a problem as it should be, or maybe it shouldn't even be a problem. It's something very minor from the outside looking in, but from the inside looking out, it's a problem that this person is like, hey, I don't know how to solve this. And so the title of today's episode is, are you solution oriented, which means like, are you solution oriented or are you problem oriented? Like, what is the frame or approach that you take towards not just health and fitness, but really your life? Like, do you look at things as being like, well, this is a major problem, or do you just handle it and move on? And I think people get bogged down and just stressed out about things that we shouldn't really even give two more seconds about than we do. Like, we should just solve it in 1 second and boom, we move on, as opposed to letting it like linger in our minds. But people aren't good at that. And so I wanted to just really have a conversation about it and get some dialogue going, and hopefully get some people to start thinking in terms of solutions instead of in terms of problems.
Is it kind of like the glass half full, glass half empty approach to thinking?
Yeah. I mean, I guess that's a big part of it, right? Like, are you an optimist or are you a pessimist? But even one deeper layer than that would be like, okay, is there a problem? Like, am I looking at this from a position of like, this is a major problem, when really it's like, you could just solve it and move on and not let it affect you. Don't let it like take any more of your life than it needs to. And I think people get stressed out because we're inexperienced and we're not confident in our ability to handle that one issue. Mm-hmm. Right. So like, if you think about something that if you're presented with a problem that you've never solved before, it can seem like this daunting issue. And if it's a problem that pops up and you're like, I saw that 100 times, there's no sweat off your back to just be like, boom, done, moving on. Mm-hmm. Right. And so I think that's what I mean by kind of the perspective, inside looking out versus outside looking in. To somebody that's solved that problem so many times, they're looking at it and going like, what are you stressed out about? It's not a big deal. Right. But for the person that it's happening to, and they're not confident in their ability to solve it, very stressful. Mm-hmm. Right. Very stressful.
It's kind of the idea of looking at how to get it done instead of why did it happen. You can focus on why did it happen, or you can just go ahead and do it. If you focus on why, it's not going to change the fact that there's a problem. You're just going to get closer to the solution quicker.
You're not solving anything.
Right.
You're not solving anything. And so, and I think the reason that this came up, right? My conversations that I'm having with people revolve around health and fitness, right? So my perspective of it is like, hey, I've seen this 100 times. We've solved this problem 100 times, 1,000 times, whatever, 10,000 times. It's not that big of a deal. So for instance, somebody that's like, hey, I'm too busy to meal prep, right? That's one example. And it's like, okay, there's probably, not only is there an easy solution to fix this, but there's probably 10 different solutions to fix this one problem. And all you're focusing on is I'm busy, I can't meal prep, as opposed to just finding a way. Like instead of going, okay, what are the 10 solutions? How do I solve this? Okay, this one will work for me. Boom. And I'm done and I handle it. Right. And so that might be, hey, yeah, I'm too busy. I can't meal prep. And it's like, okay, well, you don't need to necessarily meal prep for like an entire week. Let's just plan out your day for tomorrow and make sure you have some stuff prepared that's super easy to take with you. Let's just change your shopping list a little bit so that we can take healthy snacks that are already prepared and ready to go, instead of being like, well, this is a problem, I can't solve it. Right.
And don't be scared to try different options too. I think people focus on just the first thing that comes to their mind, and whether it works or whether it doesn't, that's where they stay. They try to make something that doesn't work instead of trying a different option. Most problems have multiple solutions.
And then just get frustrated.
Yeah. And then stop.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's one of those situations where, like, if you ever stopped and said, if this were happening to my friend, what advice would I give them? I feel like people are really good at giving advice, but not good at they're not good at giving themselves advice. And and they have the solution is obvious to everybody, as long as it's not happening to them. So if you were able to step back and you go, okay, like if my friend were dealing with this problem, what would I suggest to him? We can actually give ourselves advice and just by thinking that way, solve our own problems. It's not that challenging.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. And, whether we're trying to help our friends get through a problem or our kids, to think about it in that way and to reframe the problem. So turn the problem into, okay, what small step can I take? Even if you can't resolve the whole issue in one day or in one step, what small step can I take to move toward that solution? And then you can build upon that. So sometimes maybe biting off, the whole chunk might be too much to solve at one time, but what small change can I make to move toward that ultimate solution that you're after?
Then it's action. You're taking some sort of action. You really are solving the problem, and you're just doing it step by step by step, which is really probably how we solve the majority of our problems anyway, right?
Break it down.
Yeah. So, okay, my wife always tells me that she's a comfort-oriented person, and that I'm a solution-oriented person, right? So when my wife brings something up that's a problem, I'm like, how do we solve this? Right? And she's like, I don't need you to solve it. I just want you to like comfort me and care. Right. And I think that I'm pretty much like that in almost all of the areas of my life, but not every single one. And I think people, can be both. It just depends on what the topic is or what the issue is. Right. I think when it comes to health and fitness, a lot of people want the comfort. They don't actually want the solution. So this is the other side of things, right? Which is you can be problem oriented or focused, and you can focus on the problem simply because you don't want to focus on the solution. And so it doesn't necessarily mean, CJ's pointing to his notes, which means he's got it written down. He's like, man, you're reading my notes. I can't read upside down, dude. So
you're doing a pretty good job.
I was doing a good job. Okay. I was stealing words out of your mouth. But I think that's an issue a lot of times. So it's like, let's take the meal prep example again. That person recognizes, okay, there is a solution to my problem. It's that they don't want to give it up. And if they use the excuse of I'm too busy to meal prep, then they can hang on to their addiction to food or whatever the underlying issue really is. And so that would be the other challenge here.
Yeah.
Right. And my suggestion in that situation is like, well, let's just, first of all, let's be honest with ourselves. But, then what approach do we take with that person to get them to be more solution oriented versus like, I'm not going to solve this problem. I just want some comfort and I don't really want your advice.
I think it comes back to, helping to change the mindset. You got to take the problems head on. If you don't take them head on and you just ignore them, they're just going to get bigger and bigger. And it's just going to seem more daunting to start taking it on. Like we just talked about, you don't have to take the entire steps at one time. You can take small steps that'll get you to that goal. And then it seems like it's 3 or 4 different action items that you're doing instead of one big item that is like, where do I start? This is going to take me forever.
You're saying break it down in actionable
pieces.
steps, little actionable steps. Okay. Gotcha.
Focus on that, the journey, not the end goal.
Not the end goal.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, I think that's really important. And I think kind of building on that. So I think the small steps are really important. But then I think like thinking about what that end goal is and reminding someone, what is the goal that you're after? And if you lose sight of that, then yes, you might be stuck in that kind of problem focused mindset. But if you remind yourself, or if someone's able to remind you or hold you accountable to, what you're ultimately after, then that reframing can help. Like, okay, I need to remember why it's important for me, or why I need to focus more on the solution rather than, sitting here in a problem focused mindset. So reminding yourself what the goal is, what you're after. And if I can then take those small steps to move toward that goal, then, you'll get there. It may, take some time, but you will get there if you just kind of slowly move in that direction and just keep building upon those kind of action steps.
Yeah. I mean, motivation doesn't lead to action. Action leads to motivation. I've said that before multiple times on this podcast. And you could take somebody that's in pain. Like, let's say, think of somebody that goes to physical therapy, right? They've got like an injury, they're in pain, and they go to physical therapy, and the physical therapist is like, okay, we're going to take you through these exercises, and they start to get better. And then their problem starts to creep up again because they weren't doing the exercises after they've already solved the problem. And they're like, man, I need to do these exercises, but then they don't.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden it's like, man, I got to go back to PT because I have this injury that's now bothering me and nagging me. It's like the motivation there was that you were starting to feel pain. Like, pain is, if I'm going to put my hand on a hot stove, it's just a warning system to me of, hey, you're going to damage your body. So like, you should probably remove your hand, right? Same thing with like a shoulder injury, right? Oh, okay, I'm starting to feel this. I probably ought to do some like corrective exercises. But then people don't even do it.
Right. Mm-hmm.
It's like the problem's there. The solution. You've already been trained on how to do. You probably have a pamphlet of exercises of like, here's what you need to do to prevent your shoulder injury. You're in pain. You're motivated to do it, and you're still not doing it. Right. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, I don't know, but you just have to be solution oriented, guys. I don't know what else to say here. Like, you have to, and taking action steps is probably the easiest way to get started moving in the right direction so that you can pick up momentum and increase your motivation. But guys, when stuff comes up, if you're looking at it from a problem orientation versus a solution orientation, we're really going to have nothing's going to get solved.
No, you're not going to solve the problem.
And you're not going to be happy.
Right.
You're not going to be happy. Like, my shoulder starts to hurt. Like, I'm not going to be happy. I just need to take some action and solve the problem.
Right.
Don't be scared to ask for help either. I mean, it's a piece of accountability, like you are going to be accountable to somebody else, whether that's us or whether that's a friend that's helping you out. But it's going to make it that much easier to get to the place that you want to be. That's going to help you stay in that spot.
That's good. Get some accountability too.
And
right?
Everybody needs help.
Yep. And celebrate the small wins too, because I think if you celebrate those small wins, those small, steps that you're taking along the way, that breeds motivation and you'll continue along, those lines. And ultimately you will have success if you keep focused on the solution.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Okay. I think you guys get the point. I'm gonna do the CJ here on our outro. I'm gonna steal it from you this week. So don't pray for an easy life. Pray for the strength to make it through a difficult one. See you guys next week. Thank you so much for listening to the Healthy Living Scottsdale podcast. Do you have a question that you'd like for us to answer live on the podcast? If so, all you need to do is head over to the Apple Podcast app on your iPhone and do 3 simple things. First, leave us a rating and review telling me what you think of the podcast. In that review, ask anything you want related to health, fitness, or nutrition. And if you want a shout out, leave us your Instagram handle or name. That's all you have to do. Then listen to hear your questions answered live on the next Q&A episode.